Welcome to the Ideal Investor Show. Join us on the journey to financial success. Let's go. Today, I wanted to just kind of for the people that always say, and I don't know, I have the impression it's more and more people, that they're not really good at math. I wanted to remind you and trigger you a little bit about this topic of what's called compounding interest. Just speak about it a little bit. What is actually, in my words, the way I would phrase it, compounding interest is basically the power of investing early. And for real estate investing, you probably have heard this old saying, and when somebody says, what's the best time or when is the best time to invest in real estate? And the best answer I've ever heard and keep repeating is the best time was 20 or 25 years ago. The second best time is right now. And this is true because if you really think about it, what did a property cost 20 years ago or 30 years ago? Or when, depending on how old you are, when your parents got basically into work and they were going after what used to be called the American dream, you know, like the little house on the hill with a picket fence around it and stuff like that. It was totally normal that one person with a good job could actually get the house, put a mortgage on it, have the wife stay at home and raise the kids, do the gardening on the weekend, live in a nice community, and by the time you retire, the house is paid and you have basically a nice place to live. Well, these days, that's no longer possible. But still, if you want to look at it from, let's say, the last 30 years, what people paid 30 years ago and what you pay now, it is very likely, and you can take examples all the way to 100 years back, that it's really true that the best time was in the past and the second best time is now. The longer you wait, the more expensive it's going to get. Now, to give a little bit of an example of what is actually the point of compounding interest or the power of investing early, I want to give you two examples. The first one is there are two very famous investors. The one you probably heard about, the other one you probably never heard about. The one that I mean that you probably know is Warren Buffett. The other one that you probably haven't heard is Jamie Simon. Not to be mistaken for Jamie Dimon. So this is Simon, S-I-M-O-N. If you look at the performance of their investments, it's kind of interesting because Warren Buffett's average performance over many, many years has been about 20% in gains per year or profit per year, whatever word you want to use. Jamie Simon, who barely anybody knows, has generated 66% profit on average per year. So how come that everybody knows Warren Buffett and very few people know Jamie Simon? Wouldn't it make sense that somebody who can generate 66% of profits on average would be much better known than somebody who does 20%? Well, here's the thing. Warren Buffett started investing in his early 20s. Some people actually say he did the very first investment when he was 17. And you probably know that he is in his 90s now. So let's just say he started at 22 and he is 92 now. So he had 70 years of investing and the average was 20%. Jamie Simon only started when he was 50. He has basically and he is not that old yet. He's not nearly as old as Warren Buffett. But even if he were, he would have only had half the time or less. And that is the power of investing early. Because you have to keep in mind, if you invest in something that costs $100, in Warren Buffett's example, 70 years ago, and it made 20%. So after 1 year, it was $120, and then another 20% on those $120, right? Which is basically turning it into $144 and so forth for 70 years. Even if it's only 20% versus 66%, the amount that is increasing is just crazy. Now, one other little example. Let's say you had one investor who is always doing like Warren Buffett did and getting 20% return, and one investor who has a bonus of 50% at the very end of a 20-year investing time frame. So if you had something like that and you get, let's say, to 100,000 in 20 years, and then you get 50%, that would be 150,000. I can guarantee you if somebody had done the whole time with 20% gains, that total would be probably multiple times higher. So the reason that Warren Buffett is so famous and Jamie Simon is pretty much unknown has not so much to do with how much is the profit, but how long has the profit compounded. The other thing that will potentially blow your mind, just to get an idea of compounding, is imagine a chess board. And you have these 64 spaces of basically white and black little squares. There's a famous example called the King's chessboard for a war where basically the king was asked, what can we do to avoid that you basically take over our country in the war? And the king said, well, you can pay me rice. And then the other person said, okay, how much rice? And the king said, okay, we start with 1 quart of rice on the first field of my chessboard. And then as we go along, we double the amount of rice on each field. And if you were to calculate that, you will find out that by the time you get to the last field, or actually most of the time already several fields before you get to number 64, there is not enough rice produced even today in the whole world to satisfy the requirement, the amount that would be on the 64th field. And you can do that exercise in your mind. You can say, okay, it starts with 1, and then it's 2, and then it's 4, and then it's 8, and then it's 16, and then it's 32, and then it's 64. And you can see you're only like 5 or 6 fields in, and it's already 64, then it's 128, and keep going. And you will sooner or later need a calculator to come up with the numbers, and it gets pretty insane as soon as you get like to 30. And then you realize, holy moly, there is another 34 fields to come, and it's already this massive number. Those are some example of what compounding means. Is doubling 64 times is a crazy set of compounding, and years to have, like for example, Warren Buffett, 20% profit, and the next year 20% profit, and the next year 20% profit for many years in a row. That is really compounding to pretty insane amounts of money. So that's what I wanted to get across for you when you think about what does it really mean if I'm investing and in my real estate I make anywhere 18, 20, 22% per year. That's also the reason why right now is the second best time, because if you start now and you have like 20, 30, 40 years left in your life, the numbers that your properties will be worth is going to be insane in 40 years from now. And just the same, like when you think about what the people that bought properties 30 or 40 years ago, they would never believe what they are worth now. If you would tell somebody 30 or 40 years ago, like where I live in the San Diego area, they could buy properties between $50,000 and $150,000 40 years ago. If you would have told them that pretty much all the better properties in the area will be more than $1 million, everybody would have said, you're crazy, it cannot happen. But it did. And the same thing is going to happen in the future. So the right time is now. And just do this little exercise and see, with the King's chessboard or with a 20% compounding, which tells you why Warren Buffett is so famous. So that's it for today. I think that was a neat little exercise, just a little bit of a mind exercise game kind of thing to think about why are we doing what we're doing and why are we investing now. So be well and stay safe, and I talk to you tomorrow.